Welcome to the Maine Basketball Rankings Podcast. I am your host, basketball data nerd Lucas McNally. Today's episode is brought to you by Vertical Raise, one of the largest fundraising platforms in the country, now proudly helping teams, clubs, and programs across Maine. With Vertical Raise, your program can raise more money in less time. No selling, no collecting, just results, from new uniforms and better equipment to tourney trips and every fundraising need in between. Vertical Raise has a variety of campaigns to make it happen. Your Maine reps, Christie, you're going to see that name in a few minutes, and DChase are both coaches who know what it takes to run a great program at any sport, club, or grade level, and they understand how important fundraising is to make it happen. Schedule a call or email today and see how Vertical Raise can take your fundraising to the next level. Okay, so we've got two of our gold ball games out of the way. The 8-mans were this past weekend. We've got 4 this weekend. A, B, C, and D. Rob Kennedy and Jarod Richmond are here. They're tag team in this one. They are a great broadcasting duo for WHOU and for Maine Public. And they're going to come in, and as you're going to see, they didn't really need me. I could have gone for a sandwich because they had this pretty much covered. They talk football with each other all fall. They talk basketball all winter. And I didn't really need to be here. But you know what? They're professionals. And they're nice guys, and so they let me stick around, and they were nice enough to come on the show and let me ask the questions and then just sit there and nod my head like I was following along, and they just went off. And it's great stuff, so you're really gonna enjoy that. Before we do that, we gotta do a little bit of stuff. First off, make sure you're subscribing to this on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're subscribing, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and tell your friends because, hey, sharing is caring, right? And, these podcasts are a lot of fun to do, and they're a lot more fun when people come up to me at football games or basketball games or whatever and say, hey, I really like the podcast. Oh, I really enjoyed this podcast. So, it's part of a thing. It's nice to know you're not just speaking out into the void, and subscribing helps other people find the show, yada, 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 yada. Okay. You also should be subscribing to MaineBasketballRankings.com. It's $6 a month. You get tons of extra stuff. You're going to want it for basketball season. You're going to want to know what the point spread is for your game on a Tuesday night. And, it's a great value. So go there, subscribe. The more people subscribe, the more stuff I can do. Okay. So I went to the 8-man games in Auburn. Yeah, Auburn. They were Edward Little. All sort of blends together at some point. I'd seen Camden Hills a couple times because that's close to my house. And I hadn't seen Spruce Mountain, but I had heard really good things. And Spruce Mountain looked good. Dylan Jewett looks like a really good quarterback. But, man, it was Camden's day. They were all over it. They just absolutely owned that game from the opening tip. And a really impressive win. They put up 52 points on Spruce Mountain, which is a little bit crazy. Hall Schwalm was awesome. I talked about that a little with Rob and Jarod. It was a little funny because at the game, the PA announcer did not know how to pronounce his name. And I have been saying all season long that I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I keep apparently pronouncing it correctly, or at least close enough that people go, no, yeah, you got it. But, man, this PA announcer was not close. He was like, I think he said Schwinn at some point. He was all over the place. And all I'm saying is, if I was the PA announcer for a state championship game, I would make sure I knew how to pronounce the names of the quarterbacks. The tight end, maybe not. Maybe not, a cornerback or a safety. You might not know that one. But the quarterback, I feel like, is going to come up a lot. And so that would be a name I would figure out ahead of time. Just a thought. Eventually, the Camden faithful were able to flag him down and get his attention. Although I think for Ethan Snow from WHOU said that for a while they were just yelling at him. And he's like, I know how to pronounce his name, and I'm not the PA guy. So you want to go talk to that guy. And they got it sorted out. But Hollis played a fantastic game. He had a crazy 67-yard touchdown run. And he just really was calm in the pocket. A very impressive performance. And very cool to see that program win their first ever gold ball in football. It's hard to imagine that Camden, just at a glance, doesn't already have a gold ball in football because it's Camden. But then you just remember those are all basketball gold balls. And mountain biking. They have a lot of mountain biking state championships because I think they're the only team, the only school that does mountain biking. I think that's what's going on there. But they have a banner. If you go in their gym, it's like 45 state championships for mountain biking. I'm not sure what's going on there. So yeah, after the game, I spoke to Camden coach Christie. ChrisC, you might remember that name from 3 minutes ago. He is your Vertical Rays Maine rep, who is sponsoring this podcast. Very nice guy. And they do really great stuff at Vertical Rays. Very excited to partner with them for basketball season. So if you need to raise money, and you're going to need to raise money for something pretty soon, talk to them. They will help you raise more money. Very good stuff. But let's listen to my conversation with Christie about the football game.
You can interview Coach Vasillo too if you want.
You want to get him over here? We're rolling, so we can do anything.
Yeah.
All right, so we first spoke, it was warmer. I think it was week 3, that Mount Ararat game at home. You're down at the half there. Realistically, did you think you'd be holding a gold ball net today when you're down at the half, week 3 or whatever?
100%. This has been our focus from day one. It was never to win the regular season championship. That was never our goal. The goal was to win this game right here, and that's been the focus from day one.
So the big difference from last year is Hollis Schwalm was not on the field last year. Talk about the impact he's had on this team and in this game.
Yeah, I mean, he's a leader and he's an athlete. And I don't know if I've met a person that has a bigger passion for competitiveness, but also being a leader. I mean, there are times when we made a couple little mistakes, and he was there to calm guys down and slow everything down. And then, of course, some of the cuts that he makes, I think my back is hurting just by watching him run around today. So, yeah, just a leader on and off the field, 100%.
I think my hip got dislocated watching some of those moves today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could see him calming people down in between plays during the game. And then after the regional final, it was the big message of this isn't the end. This is not what we're going for.
Right.
There's more to this.
Yeah, no, there was never, the focus was this game right here. And, credit to Hollis and being those leaders, Batty, Harrington. I mean, that whole senior group is just so, there's such an influence on the group that when we can put out, go second level and third level running backs and still be pounding it, that bodes well for us for the future. But it started with those guys and leaders.
So one more Hollis question. One thing I noticed in this game more than the other games I've seen was that Spruce could get into the backfield and he was just so calm and didn't get hurried up and was eluding guys, but I think it was because he wasn't getting rushed.
Yeah. I mean, credit to Hollis because, we normally like to throw the ball a fair amount, and credit to Spruce for playing a great defense and not allowing us to do that. I think some of the initial reads were there, but he was getting some pressure. And the thing I like about Hollis so much is that even when he's scrambling, his eyes are always down the field. Like, he's always looking to get one of his teammates into the play, but there are times when he just needs to tuck it and go. Yeah.
So it seemed like every time Spruce made a little bit of a run, there was Braden Beveridge doing something. Talk about his game.
Yeah, Braden Beveridge, and it's going to be so much fun to have him back again next year because he's just a junior, but he's hands down the best athlete on the team, and he just has a nose for it. He has a way of reading the quarterbacks, and he kind of acts, sometimes I think he doesn't have great coverage, but I know he's just kind of baiting him in for a throw and just wants them to throw, and then all of a sudden he comes flying out of nowhere.
So Spruce was favored by a lot of people, including my spreadsheet. What did you see in the film that you thought you could exploit?
I thought we just matched up really well with them. I mean, we have a great combination of power where we can run up the middle if we want to with Ben Hoffman, Ethan Dingle, but then also and Silas Moody. But then we also have the ability to just dump off swing passes and posts. I mean, so we have a full arsenal, and there are a lot of plays that I didn't get to today just because Spruce didn't allow us to run them. So we have an offense that's pretty tough to slow down.
So this is the first gold ball for the football program. You got a ways to go to catch the basketball program. Do you think you can do it?
Hey, one step at a time, right? One gold ball at a time.
All right, congratulations.
Thanks, man.
So they got a ways to go to catch the basketball program in gold balls, but you got to start somewhere, and the way the basketball program looks this year, they might get them both. It's not outlandish. Falmouth did it last year. They've got a pretty good team. I did a preseason poll, which a bunch of people did, and there's going to be another episode about that later this week with Jay Baines. We're going to go over the preseason poll results. And spoiler, Camden did quite well. boys and girls, I think, did quite well in the preseason basketball poll. So stick around for that. That's another reason why you want to subscribe. Okay, so then after that, we had OOB and Stearns. And then I was asking people, just sort of straw polling it around, Camden scored 52. Would you take OOB to over or under 52 points in a DraftKings scenario? OOB scored 18 points because Stearns' defense was awesome. And you kept waiting. I was talking about this later with Rob and Jarod. You kept waiting for them to show up, and maybe it's because I jinxed them by referring to them as the Tasmanian Devil in the newsletter that day. If so, that's my bad. But also, if you've been listening to the podcast a lot this year, you know that there's been an open question of whether or not you can get pure fries still in OOB. And so Jason Weber, one of the coaches from Old Orchard Beach, confirmed that you cannot get pure fries at this time of year. The pure fries end in late September sometime. The arcade is closed. I think Bill's Pizza is closed. Bill's Pizza might still be open. I didn't check on that one. But so that just want to square that circle. No more pure fries. The arcade's closed. So if you're a booth-based situation and you want to go, if you got to go play them in the playoffs and get absolutely smoked, you don't even have the ability to go to the arcade afterwards. So that's really, I think that factored into their math, at least a little bit. But the story of this game is Stearns' defense was unbelievable. They made Old Orchard Beach look mortal, I guess is the right word. And then OOB, there were a lot of flags in this game. I don't want to take anything away from what Stearns did, but there were a lot of flags in this game, and there were some key ones, and I'm not going to say whether or not, I don't know if these were legitimate flags because I didn't have a good angle on any of them, but there's OOB scores to make it 20-18. They go for the 2-point conversion. There's a 5-yard penalty for a formation, I think illegal formation or something, backs them up 5 yards. Trot Moody gets hauled down on the 2-point conversion at like the 2, so that would have tied the game. Then Trot Moody gets an interception, and you think, okay, they're going to march down. They get called for 2 straight holding penalties, which you don't see that very often. And I don't know if they were holding penalties. Old Orchard Beach didn't seem to think they were holding penalties. Regardless, that wasn't what ended the game. What ended the game was Stearns sacked Trot Moody and forced a fumble and fell on the fumble, and that ended the game. So all credit to them. All credit to the Minutemen and getting their first gold ball in a very long time. So after the game, I spoke to their coach, Cody Herring, and here's that.
All right, Coach, you just shocked the Maine high school football world. How does it feel?
It feels great. Obviously, coming into the game, we knew what Old Orchard Beach is capable of. I mean, they basically scored 60 against every opponent they play. And all week, we just stressed the defense, and, the kids made plays when they needed to down the stretch. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so you held the team to score 60 points on pretty much everybody, usually in the first half.
Yes, I know.
To 18 total points.
Yes.
Like, what did you do?
We just, we watch a lot of film. We spend a lot of time preparing. We picked up some keys that we knew could help us pre-snap, and our kids executed. Really, football is simple, really. It comes down to blocking and tackling, and we tackled well today.
So you played them earlier this year,
Yep.
and it was a close game at the half, and
Yes.
then they did their thing in the second half.
Course, yes.
Was there something that in that first game that gave your kids the confidence that, hey, we can hang with them?
Yeah, we were up at halftime, and we made a couple mistakes in the second half, and they took advantage of them and won. But our kids knew after that game that if we worked hard enough, we got the opportunity to play them again, that we could beat them here. We felt that. We really did.
Talk about the play of Lucas Pelkey. He came up big in a bunch of different ways.
Yes, he did. Lucas is unbelievable. I call him Rat. He's like a rat. He does anything he can to survive, almost, is what it is. And he's obviously a big catalyst for us, and his play just really elevated today in the moments when we needed him.
So every coach I know is a big ball of stress. And when Trot Moody got the interception late, got the big return, like, what's going through your head?
Gotta get a stop. We've made a few all day. We just needed to get one more, but can't say I wasn't stressed.
Then you had a nice moment with your kids, and
Yeah.
what does it mean, you think, to them to see Dad pull off a big thing like this?
Well, I mean, they know during football season that I'm gone a lot. You know what I mean? I'm don't get home till 7 o'clock every night, and them being here and being a part of it is special beyond belief for me. And shows that if you work hard enough, no matter what you go up against, you can do it. My youngest is upset. He's crying because I was crying, and he thinks something bad happened.
He'll learn soon that something very good happened.
Yes, he will.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm a big fan of the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I listen every week.
It really was a very cute situation with this kid. It was very adorable. And yeah, he coached a great game. And I had known, he said to me afterwards, he's like, oh, I'm also a ref. And I was like, I knew I recognized you from somewhere, because you see people and you're like, all right. Okay, so then we went to, everybody who was there, Herman and Levitt were playing over at Lewiston, so we all went there. And Levitt did Levitt things, and they look really impressive. Yeah, Mason Henderson had 4 touchdowns in that game, and man, that kid has some speed. He hit the corner, and he's just gone. Just absolutely, afterburners gone. Okay, so, yeah, and then there's a little bit of drama on Facebook, and we mentioned this at the beginning of the episode. Andrew Hart from MaineHighSchoolFootball.com posted a photo, bunch of photos, all videos, the whole thing. I posted a photo of the Stearns winning celebration, and then somebody grabbed it and just stole it on Facebook, and a bunch of people shared it, and Andrew got annoyed, because as you should. And I just want to say that that's not cool. You can't just take people's stuff. Like, I know there are big accounts that have made themselves very popular and well-known in this state by doing exactly that, but you can't do that. It's not cool. It's unethical. It's illegal. And it's just bad. Like, he has every right to get annoyed about that. And, copyright law is pretty clear. Just because you Googled something on the internet and think you understand it, you probably don't. And the number of people on Facebook yelling at him for all sorts of nonsense is ridiculous. And you know what? Andrew puts in a ton of work. He makes no money on this, and he just works his ass off to provide all of this content and all of these resources for Maine high school football, and he deserves better than that, and he deserves better than the reaction from the people on Facebook who really struggle with basic reading comprehension. So what annoys me, I think, the most about it is that people, if you keep hearing stories of people, and there's been other photographers who've been complaining about this for years. There was some 207 photo was complaining about it last week. If you keep doing this stuff and people keep putting all this effort and resources of their own time and energy and money and sweat equity and everything, and then people just take their stuff, you know what happens? They stop doing it. And then you're complaining, like, why isn't anyone talking about the 8-man small teams? Because no one's talking about the 8-man small teams. They're only just talking about Thornton Academy and Bonnie Eagle. It's like, well, because when people were talking about the 8-man small teams, you drove them away. So be better, everybody. Don't steal photos from other people. Don't just steal a photo. Take a photo off that you found off the internet and throw your logo on it and put it on Instagram and be like, hey, look at that. I did a little bit of Photoshop on this. This thing I did. Aren't I great? No, you're not. No, you suck. So stop it. Okay. Rant over, because if I keep going, I'm going to really piss some people off. Be better, everybody. Okay. So, great show for you today. And let's go directly to Rob Kennedy and Jarod Richmond. My 2 guests today are the award-winning broadcasters behind WHOU's football coverage and Maine Public's coverage of the Gold Ball games. Rob Kennedy, Jarod Richmond, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Looking forward to talking with you.
Now, Rob, before we get started, do you want to do a tight 5 minutes on copyright law?
Not really. I know it has nothing to do with FERPA, though. I'm pretty clear on that. But I mean, honestly, I know what you're referring to overall as far as the discussion of borrowing pictures online. And well, the idea overall is that too many people try to pretend they're lawyers. I'm not going to do that. I won't do that.
But just if you're going to take something, ask. And if you're going to basically want to use someone's some photograph, get permission. It's that simple.
Yeah, and I think my big takeaway from this is Andrew Hart does way too much work for free to have to deal with this nonsense.
And I'm just done suffering fools. I mean, it's on the internet, I can take it. No, it's not how it works. If you believe that, then I did this. I took a bunch of pictures of this person's kids. I'm like, okay, so I can now use these for any purpose that I want. And they're like, well, no, that's different. I'm like, no, it's not. You said anything on the internet is fair game. So yeah, I got pretty heated about that because I've just seen it in the 20 years I've been broadcasting. The internet's kind of been a thing. I've seen it far too much, going back to my Maniacs days, to Rob Munzing stuff. It's infuriating. And to deal with these rubes who don't get it was really annoying.
Yeah, and I liked all the stuff about, like, I think what triggered a lot of people was when he mentioned that he has the page monetized, but we're talking about like gas money here.
Right. Yeah, I mentioned that too. It's like, it's not like he's rolling up in a Lambo. It's basically you're making a little money off it. It's nice. It compensates your work, pays for your gas money, maybe maybe a burger after the game. But it's no one's getting rich from covering high school sports. Nobody.
No,
We're not getting rich from covering high school sports.
I've seen the cars both of us drive. No.
Yes, we spent a lot of time in both those cars this fall.
Yeah, we do.
I mean, yeah, that's about the length of my law. I've seen A Few Good Men and select Matlock episodes, so that's the extent of my law knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole. I think the irony of it is he made way more off the post of people yelling and playing, internet lawyer than he did than he would have if people had just shared the photo originally. So it works out in the end. All right, so let's start. I want to start with 8-man, which you guys are on here because you're doing 2 of the gold ball games for 11-man, but we got to hit 8-man because we had those 2 championship games this past weekend. Let's start with Camden Spruce Mountain. I've seen Camden 3 times, and that is the best I've seen Hollis Schwalm play by quite a lot. I don't know if you guys got to see that because you were doing Jarod's at Harvard now or something. I don't know what's going on there. Dartmouth? Okay. Did I see you at Harvard, though?
I went to the Harvard game. Rob and I went down to the Harvard game. He was down there for Dartmouth hockey that weekend, and we were able to score some sideline passes. So did not see any of that. And I was at Dartmouth this past weekend for senior day. But, I mean, we talk about Camden Hills. I mean, what an unbelievable season. But also, give flowers to Spruce Mountain. Devin Roberts did such a great job they jumped up from small man to large man and took on all comers and made it to the state championship game. But, I mean, Schwalm had a day. He picked a good day to have a great day. And that Camden Hills team, I didn't see them live or anything, but everything I had read and seen, they were just dominant all year long.
I was really impressed by Schwalm. I had that game on. I was watching 2 things. I was watching Jarod's debut on Nesson for the Dartmouth game, which was kind of fun to see. And I had my tablet, the HOU games on, both the 8-man games. I was kind of trying to keep an eye on both, which is sometimes easier said than done to kind of focus on that. But I was really impressed with Hollis Schwalm. And to watch the Camden Hills, I was there about 15 years ago, when that program was starting, and there were just some doubts overall if it would be viable. I mean, the soccer tradition at Camden Hills, of course, has been just so outstanding over the years. Can you do both? And they struggled for a while. They struggled with numbers. And the 8-man addition has been a godsend to teams just like Camden Hills. And to give kids a chance, like Hollis Schwalm, to show their skills and play and really demonstrate in a game of a high-profile game in a state championship game, just what kind of skills they have, to me, was really, really fun to see. And I was very happy for Camden Hills, never having won a football championship before, to get that football championship for the first time. And I know they got plenty of trophies down there in Windjammer land, but not for football. And it's going to be a great addition to go next to all the basketball and the many, many others they have in the trophy case down in Camden Rockport.
Yeah, and one thing that they reminded me of after the game was that program started 15 years ago, but it was left for dead 5 years ago, something like that. And they were able to bring it back. Christie did a great job there. And Schwalm, it's one of the first times I can think of where I saw a quarterback getting rushed a lot, and they were in the backfield a lot, and he had that level of calm that you don't ever see at the high school level. Like, he wasn't hurried, he wasn't frantic at all. He just had his eyes downfield and was just making people miss with little tiny movements, and I was really impressed with that.
And that's the key thing too, especially with 8-man, where things do happen a lot faster on the narrower field. And teams are getting better and better at that. But to be able to stand in there and have that poise when things are happening just that much faster, just really speaks to what they were able to piece together down there. I remember when I was with Winthrop, we took a trip down there, and they had rented portable construction lights to have a night game there in Camden, and you could tell that there was support. It just takes some time to get that support in a basketball, soccer heavy school like that. You see the same thing kind of Maranacook kind of once soccer took over there for a while, and it was really a dominant soccer program. When you have some of those smaller schools and you've got like all of those fall offerings, it really does make it hard to roll out teams. I think that's why you see a lot of teams maybe that either are classified down or do co-op kind of things too. So, but an incredible end of their season, and another really two back-to-back strong seasons for Spruce Mountain. I know it's not how they wanted it to end, but a great get. And Devin Roberts as the head coach of that program had some success in Mountain Valley, was a successful player at Mountain Valley too. And, that was a really gritty team from Spruce Mountain as well.
I'm just happy that 8-man has taken off so well, because
Yes.
all of us remember back when it was first brought up and considered, and the commentary from a lot of people was, it's really not football. I mean, why are we doing this? It's not really the same. Football is an 11-person game. And I said at the time, I really don't know much about 8-man, and I still don't know much about 8-man. Where I travel doesn't give me a lot of opportunities to call it, so I've only seen a handful of games, but I really enjoy it. And regardless, 8-man is certainly a lot better than 0-man. That's what a lot of these schools would be playing if it wasn't for catches.
I can't go on this podcast and I have Phoenix.
Yeah, Phoenix just shows up. But
Yes.
you'd have 0-man football, and you wouldn't get to see athletic feats like we saw on Saturday from all four of the teams that played. I was really impressed by all four.
Yeah, and you've got some people have made the argument that some of these 8-man programs have more kids than the 11-man programs, and then there was some pushback from both Mount Ararat and Camden about that, where they said, look at these kids. Like, some of these kids are wearing Crocs. Like, they're not playing in the game. They're just wearing a uniform, and like, someone mentions that, and you start noticing like, oh, that kid's wearing glasses. He's not getting in the game. Like, these are JV kids who are just on the sideline. This is not, maybe these numbers aren't as inflated as people seem to think they are.
And I think every time, it's, I don't know, it's human nature, but we always seem that, when somebody wins or succeeds, especially if they succeed too much, we now have to find a way to knock them down a peg, because that's just not something we can tolerate. So, with Mount Ararat winning a couple in a row, doing very well, and they have the highest amount of people. Is it really fair? They're an 8-man. Chevrolet, I know, was a little bit of an anomaly because they didn't expect to have many kids at all, and then things turned around for them quite a bit, and they had a bunch and moved up after that. But I think sometimes we really look for reasons to try to find ways to diminish the accomplishments of high school athletes. And the "it's not fair, they have an advantage" stuff, rarely, to me, is a realistic thing. Sometimes, sure, every once in a while, there's exceptions to that. But I think a lot of times we look for reasons just to try to find a way to say, well, they're really not that great. And whether it's fans of other teams or what have you, I just kind of wish that wouldn't happen as much as it does.
And I think sometimes that too comes from some of the sour grapes. If you've been struggling to kind of get traction on your end, or you're tired of getting beat, and sometimes you just kind of, when you've got a good thing going, it's hard to, it's hard to sometimes appreciate it for what it is. I think we can, take a look in the small man division, in the small school division. Old Orchard Beach has been there consistently year after year after year. But I mean, the reality is that's one of the smallest schools in the state. So to be able to come out and feel the team, and they've got good coaches, they've got good infrastructure. They were a solid 11-man team, but Coach Dean Plant saw the writing on the wall for his program, and he really helped pioneer 8-man in the state. And I think sometimes there is a little bit of that big brother factor to it, like. You keep getting pummeled by the teams that, can get the job done. And that's not trying to discredit teams that might not be able to get over that hump. But I mean, at the same time, like, you also saw that Stearns, talk about an 11-man powerhouse, and you want to talk about, it could be a whole different podcast and case study about like the socioeconomic structure of small towns, especially in northern Maine. I mean, think about teams like Bucksport, Stearns, Orono, all classic LTC powerhouses from back in the day, are all in 8-man and playing 8-man football. I mean,
And all those schools played for a state championship sometime in the last 15 years too, I believe. I know Stearns did, Bucksport has, they all have. So it's just things change, and when demographics change, when numbers change, socioeconomic factors change. I mean, there was not that long ago, 20 years, that Mountain Valley could lay a claim to be the best and certainly one of the best teams in the state every single year. And things changed in Rumford as well.
Yeah, and
So
things aren't going great in Millinocket overall.
no.
That's why I was really psyched to see him win, honestly. And it's nothing against Old Orchard Beach. I have a ton of respect for that team and for Coach Plant, both in football and in basketball. I think he does a tremendous job down there. But I was really psyched for Stearns. I was there when they played Yarmouth, and they lost their quarterback, if I remember is right, early in that game. And that really changed things because, you lose the guy who drives your offense. He's played all year. He's one of your best players. And they might not have beaten Yarmouth that day. I don't know. I'm not saying that, but it really crippled them. And I think it took them really out of the chance they had to win that game. And I know it's been a struggle for Stearns and adding those kids from Skank together to get there too. It's been a struggle. And to have them win this, I thought felt really good for the Millinocket and East Millinocket communities. Really happy for them. I know they waited a long time, since 1998. So again, nothing against Old Orchard Beach, but they'd won recently. Stearns hasn't. So I was psyched to see them take that gold ball back up north with them.
I mean, you got to go back to, Justin Cummings was the star running back up there in the late 90s. Tom Bertrand, who's the MCI coach, was my coach, was the coach up there. I mean, it's been a long time coming for those teams. And I think, Lucas, you really hit on it too. It's also kind of a safety thing. When you don't have a ton of numbers, you might be pushing kids into a situation to play before they're actually really ready to play. I think that's a key thing. I think when you look at some of the other sports, safety, I think, is extremely important in a sport like football, soccer, basketball. All of them have hockey, have those safety concerns, but I think football can be just a little bit different. When you look at it, you try Rob, you also do a lot of hockey, and that's a contact sport in Maine. There's some big collisions. You don't want to put kids out there in a position where they're not ready yet. And on top of that, you don't want to turn them off from being able to go out and participate. And sometimes, getting just absolutely waxed week in and week out can, wear a toll. Like, on the other end of the spectrum, credit to a team like Mount View, who saw it out with very low numbers all season long, but they saw it through to fruition, which I think is also as equally impressive and deserves recognition as a gold ball does. So, there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer to it. But I think, what 8-man's done for the state for football to keep football going for those smaller schools, I think Rob hit the nail on the head. 8-man's better than no man.
Yeah, and the difference in basketball is if you've got a kid who's like 5'4", weighs nothing, soaking wet, you can stick him on the perimeter, you can put him in the corner, he can just guard the ball handle or something like that. He doesn't have to guard the center. And he doesn't have to be put in a situation where he's going to take like real contact. It's easy to hide someone like that in basketball where it isn't in football.
Yeah, not at all. And you mentioned hockey too. I think that's football is the most physical of sports. I mean, hockey in Maine in college, you see guys, you have games, back-to-back games on 2 separate days. You'll never see that in football, like ever at any level, because it's just there's so much contact, so much physicality that you have to rest. So it takes its toll. And as a long season, really important again that you don't risk injury. And 8-man has saved a bunch of programs. There are dozens and dozens of kids playing high school football in the state of Maine and many other states who would not get that opportunity under normal circumstances without 8-man.
Mm-hmm. So here's a thought I had this weekend. Is it worth considering to change 8-man from large school and small school to, for lack of a better word, we're trying to get back to 11-man and we like 8-man? Because OOB is not going back to 11-man, I don't think, anytime soon, as long as Dean's there. And I don't get the sense that Camden is either, and a couple other schools, but there's definitely your Greeleys who are using it as a way to get back into 11-man. Is that does that make any sense?
I think a
I
little
wouldn't
bit,
say
but I
that
think
was
it also polices itself. I mean, Chevrolet is a really good example of that. They had the 1 year, they're like, okay, well, we kind of projected wrong, so this is not where we should be, and they were able to get themselves back into 11 man. I know that there was, work on developmental league for a while and things like that. I don't know if there's like a really good solution to that overall, but I think generally it polices itself for the most part right now. I don't see it as, I really don't feel as though there are teams that are staying in 8 man to take advantage of that because they feel like that's where they can win best. I think, having coached football for a long time and been around football for a long time, for lack of a better term, there's a lot of alpha charisma in those coaches' rooms.
No.
Very competitive. I have yet to meet a football coach that I've coached with or coached against that isn't competitive and not looking to go out and go against the best and be tested against the best. So I think the concept is good, but I don't, I I'm still kind of torn in that, is that a solution in search of a problem? I haven't really seen, at least from how I feel about it being a major problem right now. I think, you saw Spruce bump up from small man to large man. They knew that's where they needed to be. They did that. They put themselves in that position. Um, yeah, I think that, you know, by and large, again, it's such a hard thing. That's why I don't do it. That's why I don't even claim to think I could come up with the solutions. Um, but the concept or the figuring out classification, figuring out where to put schools, figuring out should there be a roster cap for an 8 man team? Well, what if what if that winning generates kids to come out and you have more kids that show up that you didn't anticipate that want to participate and be part of something, and and everything's on a 2-year classification cycle. I think it's you got to look at longer trends, I think. And generally, I think the teams that should be an 8 man are an 8 man, and the teams that should be an 11 man are an 11 man.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I don't see anyone right now that's been misplaced or miscategorized in 8 man football. I think the one exception was the year that Chevrolet was caught off guard with the number of players they had. And of course, that was their last year in 8 man. And I think 8 man is great regardless of why teams decide to utilize it, whether it's this is where we are permanently because we're a small school, or a school that is starting football and we don't think we're going to have the numbers to kind of maintain 11 man. I think that's awesome. I think Greeley, to kind of get themselves back on their feet to play 11 man, was the ultimate goal. That's great. They went down and did that. It's a great thing to think about sometimes, as many hypothetical situations are. But I wouldn't really start to go and meddle with it too much because I think it's working pretty well on its own right now. And I think a lot of times too, it's we look at a team that wins a couple of years in a row and think that's going to last forever. But ask the Mountain Valleys, the Chevrolet's, the Watervilles of the world, how long forever really is. And you let things go. It's only Wayne Fleet Tennis that wins every year. So
Or
it's
Skowhegan field hockey.
yeah, but there's nowhere for them to go. They're already playing in Class A unless they start playing, Thomas and Colby and teams like that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I look at 8 man and say this has been really wildly successful, and just keep riding it through. And if teams, bounce back and forth, in a couple of year cycles, I don't think there'll be that many that do that. I think most will stay in their respective divisions, and it's going to work out really well for those programs.
Yeah, and I don't want to skip over. I feel like we skipped over a little bit of Stearns with that win. Like the model had them as 30-point underdogs, and I heard people say they would take that. They would take take OOB with the 30 points, and the game plan that those coaches came up with, and their head coach's name escapes me now, and I feel like an idiot because I'm old and tired of drinking energy drinks on a Tuesday night. The game plan they had, they made OOB look mortal for the most part. Like there were flashes where Trot Moody would do something, Wes Gallant would do something. You go, oh, I see what the OOB thing is. But you just kept waiting for them to come back, and you just kept waiting for the fire hose of Old Orchard Beach offense to turn on, and they just never got it going.
There were a couple of chances they had to do that too,
They had chances.
And Stearns' defense. And I remember hearing Cal and Ethan on the broadcast mentioning, it's been Stearns, that defense that they've relied on all year, and that defense stepped up. And you don't see that happen at Old Orchard Beach, which really makes that even more impressive. That you found someone who could slow them down and contain them enough so that their offense can go to work and they can outscore them. I mean, you're not going to stop Old Orchard Beach, you're going to shut them out, but to slow them down and to contain them so your offense can win the day. That hasn't happened very much. And, credit to Stearns for doing that. It was a really impressive win. And I kind of thought the same thing watching is like, is this the time where Old Orchard Beach just kind of blitzes back and gets out in front again? And Stearns didn't allow that. It was really, really cool to see.
Yeah, well, Cody Herring really figured out a defensive formula that works in class in 8-man. I mean, they were in 8-man small, they were the best. They had allowed the fewest points, and in 8-man statewide, they would allow the third fewest points. So, he had figured out that side of the football, and I think you can really clamp down and think about those OOB teams during that run they had. I mean, they're going to be back there next year or near the top. I mean, it was really, really good defense, got teams off the field offensively, and the more your offense is on, the more scoring opportunities that you have, and I think that's sometimes how the score gets kind of bumped up a little bit. So. But I mean, also it's just sometimes the shoe fits, the slipper fits, and it certainly did with Stearns. And, that's huge for that community. It's absolutely a huge thing for that community.
I'm laughing because I'm still getting flack on the Facebook page.
Your phone just going off.
Yep. Buzz. I'm like, yeah, I'm not even respond. I don't respond. It's like, man.
Yeah, why not? It was a very cool. I don't know if you probably didn't see this, but there was a very cool moment with Herring after the game where his kids ran up to him as they were all celebrating, and he's it's the emotion of winning a state championship. He starts to cry a little bit, and his one kid who's like 1.5, 2, starts freaking out because daddy's crying. And maybe never seen that, and oh my God, what's wrong? And that kid was inconsolable for 10 minutes.
Yeah, he'll learn eventually about tears of joy.
That's the good stuff.
That is the good stuff. All right, so let's move on. He also wanted me to mention that he was one of the refs for the Caribou Biddeford game, and he wanted to point out that that was not his call, the Madeline Dupree going in early on the free throw.
No, we were watching that game down at the other end, so that wasn't our game to call. So that wasn't. We didn't broadcast that one. What a game that was, though.
That was such a good game. But he did point out to me after I interviewed him, he's like, "That wasn't my call."
I'm going to Caribou this year to broadcast up there for the first time, and really looking forward to it as a quick little aside. Yeah, I've never been inside the gym at Caribou High School, so in December I'll get my first trip up there. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm trying to convince my brother to road trip with me up there to go to like Southern Aroostook and a couple places. So
Southern Aroostook, you're taking the easy way out.
Well, we have a hunting camp near there, so
okay.
So I might be able to talk him into it. All right, so let's move on to the 11-man games that are happening on Saturday. Let's start with Class D. So Class D is, I didn't write in my notes down, it's Winslow and Winthrop, right?
Yes.
I did no prep for this because I'm like, if I'm not ready for this, then I'm never going to be after this season.
And I haven't done, of course, we're prepping for the Class A and B games. We have those two, and Cal and Coach are doing the games in Lewiston C and D. So I'm definitely a little more knowledgeable about the A and Bs, but a little bit of those. And of course, Jarod's so close to that Winthrop program that I know got a lot of expertise. I'll defer mostly to him on the Ds.
Well, I mean, this is, everyone felt like coming out the beginning of the year, Winthrop was probably going to be the team out of the South, and it was going to be either Babst or Winslow out of the North. And, Winthrop handled their business in the South. I know you've kind of read in the paper and seen people talk about, easy schedule this and that, but you still got to play everybody. They played against Mount Blue. They went up 2 classes and played a Class A team. Don't throw Mount Blue's record out the window. That's, you're playing up 2 classes. It takes special teams. I don't care, the top of Class D basketball, you could have a really talented team. If they went and played South Portland, take your pick of any other AA team, they're probably going to struggle, even if it's maybe South Portland's a bad example because, Coach Millington has that thing cooking down there, and they're always in. But you take a mid to low level AA team, and they probably beat that Class D team. I think the jump from like D to C is so much more is closer than the jump from like D to A.
When Noble was bad, they would play Trape, and they split with Trape over 2 years.
Yeah.
So I mean and Trape was like an 8-8 team or 9-9 team or something like that in those years.
which makes me think about heel points, which we can have that conversation after this week. I know teams are getting underway, but on the other side, Winslow, I mean, their one mar on their record was a loss to John Baps in the regular season. But, what do? They respond with a 330-yard offensive effort on the ground, running that double wing. They're just, an incredible power football team. It's a classic Winslow, West Littlefield double wing team. They have a tremendous offensive line. They've got great weapons that can run the football. There's so many different things. They got back Ben Thomas, one of their key linemen, and he's a guard who does a really good job. And you could kind of see a difference. I've watched a little bit of their film. You could see a difference with him back in the game. Does make a huge difference. But they've just got different guys that can hurt you wherever. Broderick Bimpson is a tremendous running back for them, and Michael Lubert also. They split the load in the backfield, but on the other side, Winthrop is a really good mix of speed and power. Ben Porter is a tremendous receiver, one of the best receivers in Class D, and one of the top receivers in the state. Jacob Fife back there at quarterback, he can uncork long balls, and they got some really good running backs in the backfield too. Ross Fickthorne is a young running back who's done a lot of great stuff for them as well. I mean, there's a lot of different names on both those teams. I think this is, the classic. And also, Winthrop's defense has allowed the fewest points in the state of any 11-man team. But Winslow's also one of the higher scoring teams in 11-man this year, and doing it on the ground and doing it impressively there. So it's kind of that irresistible force meets the immovable object kind of game. When you look at that one, it has the potential of being one of the most exciting games of the weekend. I mean, that Winslow offense was the number one scoring offense in Class D this year, almost 400 points in the regular season, and they only allowed 97 points on their own. So you want to talk about, it's two good offenses and two good defenses. I think it's a very well matched game. It could possibly be the game of the weekend coming out of Class D.
I talked to some of the Winthrop Monmouth players too. This is going to be the team that's going to be the hardest to play against, because they'll be by far the most physical team they'll have played all year in Winslow. It's a throwback to the old black and blue days of Winslow football. And it's going to come down to a couple of things to me: is that can Winthrop handle the physicality of Winslow? And how do they deal with the double wing offense when you're dealing with misdirection? I think that's something that's going to be really a challenge. And I know you mentioned too, Jarod, that one of the Achilles heels that maybe that the Ramblers have is pass defense, that early in the year especially. And Winslow can throw the ball too. It's not just a running attack. So that's something that I think the Ramblers are going to have to be very wary of when it comes to defense. But if they can handle the physicality, they've got the skill. And I think it can be a very, very good game, and it can be a really close game if things go right for the Ramblers.
Yeah, that's going to be – I see that being a four-quarter game, I think. And neither team has really seen a team like that throughout the course of the season. Winthrop can spread you out and throw the football. Winslow likes to be in that double wing, very condensed, all 11 guys in the box. But they also, like you said, they also have kind of found a little bit of a spread in Winslow as well. They've run some shotgun stuff as well. So, that's going to be a really entertaining game, a very, very physical game. Those are two very physical football teams. And they're well coached. They're both very, very well coached teams. It's, that's going to be a fun one to watch. We'll have that up in the booth when we're at Fitzpatrick, certainly.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, really, really entertaining contrast of styles, I think, in that game. But both teams can be very physical and are capable of being physical.
And I just want to, before we move on to C, I just want to shout out Morse, who moved up from 11-man, or from 8-man rather, this year. They were the 6th seed. They went on a run, got all the way to the regional final. My model got 6 games wrong in the entire playoffs, and 2 of them were Morse, so they were just killing me. But shout out to them, because that's what a season, what a turnaround for them.
Nice to see a team that kind of takes their lumps early, goes through it, deals with the adversity, improves as the season goes on, and then is one game away for playing for a state championship. So yeah, the Shipbuilders. I think if you kind of ask me at the midpoint, we'll be talking about Morse football in a regional championship game. I'll say, yeah, probably not, but they really rose up, and it was great to see it.
and that's a story of how 8-Man helped a program kind of, get up off the mat. And they're young. They've got great size, and that's a team that's going to be around and causing some trouble in the Campbell Conference for a while. And you can't replicate. I mean, those extra games they got by going on that run, that's extra valuable reps. And that just generates excitement, to come and step up from 8-Man and then be competing for a regional championship. That's going to get kids and even more community buy-in. So, I mean, that's a great success story down there in Bath.
Yeah, my brother always talks about how the value of going on a tournament run is not always just with the group that went on the tournament run, but it's like the kids who watched you go on the tournament run. And it's a little bit of, they talk about in TV and movies, like seeing yourself on screen, and then you believe that you can do it. And so teams that are constantly in the tournament in basketball, like when those kids, when it's their turn to play, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is just what we do. So, a tournament run like that can pay off, for years down the road.
Yeah, it's certainly big for the guys coming back. No question about that.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to C, everybody's favorite class this year. And speaking of another team that moved from 8-man to 11-man, and I haven't looked this up, but I'm pretty sure no one's gone back to back 8-man and 11-man winning a state title.
Yeah, this is the first team to go from an 8-man state championship to an 11-man state championship in a back-to-back year. I think it's 19 straight wins now for Greeley.
Wow.
I mean, they are. I mean, state's longest winning streak, and I mean, impressive team down there. I mean, how often have you seen Wells on the wrong side of a 48-22 regional final? I can't think of any in recent memory. Luke Piper, their junior quarterback, is doing a tremendous job down there, and Noah Allen, a bunch of juniors. I mean, think about this.
Yeah.
Greeley team isn't really going anywhere either. They just really, athletic team, impressive team. And again, you take a look at, some matchups in the regular season. C was just kind of a meat grinder. Greeley, a perfect 8-0. They played a close game with Leavitt, who's the 2 seed. One of Leavitt's only 2 losses, but that was the closest game Greeley had played all year, was against Leavitt. I think it was back in September.
It was week 2.
Yep.
I was at that game. That was an awesome game.
Yeah, it was only a 2-point game.
It's really been cool to see, too, with Greeley. There's a couple of things that I really like about the program. First of all, that they have a football program, because I grew up in Cumberland, going back into the 1970s, and it was one of the pioneers as far as the early soccer powerhouses. And the field there, Glenn Hutchins Field, Glenn Hutchins Stadium, is named after the old soccer coach who was one of the legendary coaches as soccer was kind of building up. And I think the whole joke was that, Glenn would be rolling over in his grave if he ever saw football being played on his field. Well, I don't think that's the case, really. I think he'd be really happy to see that Greeley's soccer program is still very strong. And you've got the football players now playing for a state championship for the second straight year, and the success that they've had. So it's been kind of great to see a program that was, again, on the verge of extinction. They co-opted with Falmouth. They went to 8-man. They won a championship, and now they're going to be playing against one of the most vaunted programs in recent Maine state history in the Levin Hornets in Class C. So you talk about how a program has persevered and made it through and survived some really tough times. That's the Greeley Rangers.
Yeah, and I was at two games at Greeley this year, and the community support I was surprised both times how many people were there, because I knew they were coming up from 8-man. I knew they'd had some issues, and I was like, okay, I don't know how many people we're going to get. And it was a big draw. Both games I saw, were quite good.
Cumberland North Yarmouth supports its teams. I mean, they turn out, and especially when they got a team that's winning. And I'm not saying they're bandwagoners. So please don't take that as the meaning. But it's always
clip that out. That'll be the media.
I just want to make sure that's kind of I was going to read into that. But when you see success in Cumberland, and they kind of expect that, the kids are very well supported, and that goes for the arts as well and other aspects of Greeley High School. So they've got a very, very strong football program. The community's fully behind them. And, my parents live in Cumberland. They didn't have any kids who went to Greeley. My brother and I both went to Cheverus instead. But they were following the team this year. My mom said, I hope Greeley wins the state championship again. And, with no real connection outside of just living in that town, I think that's a common mentality with folks in Cumberland and North Yarmouth right now. The support has been huge. You're right.
But I think, to kind of get back to the football side of things, I mean, that support is so huge. They aim at success. But you look at this Greeley team and how explosive the offense is. I think they had 42 points in the first half, and they didn't have a drive over 4 plays. They just, I mean, you talk about it's just unbelievable that you can just rip off chunks of yards like that against what's traditionally been a very, very tough defensive unit from Wells and Coach Roach. They really, that's, talk about a well-established program. That Greeley offense is just so explosive. I'm excited to see that matchup with Levitt and defensively, just what Mike Hathaway and his staff come up with up there, because they find ways. They get better in November. They like late October, November, they get better. New quarterback this year, junior quarterback, learning the system, but they always seem to play their best football, late in the year and when it matters the most. They have Coach Bonnevie, who's a tremendous defensive coordinator. I'm sure he can scheme something up for that Greeley offense. So that's going to be a great chess match too, because Levitt is found something that's working for them. They're playing their best football right now. I mean, their only 2 losses of the year are both 1-score losses, 2 points to Greeley, and I think a touchdown or less to Wells. So, I mean, just again, really, it was a 12-7, so less than a touchdown in the regular season. But since then, that's up until their matchup with Herman in the semifinal, they didn't let up more than 7 points a game. 7 points against Gardner, who was rolling. They played Herman earlier in the year. That was a great game. Herman, one of those teams that we talked about when I was on the show earlier in the year, Lucas, that was rolling.
Mm-hmm.
They only allowed 7 points in that regular season matchup, and it was. You want to talk about constant improvement? It's a 12-7 regular season game on October 24th, and less than a month later, a 47-14 win. They got that bye, which was huge. You give that staff and those kids a week to really work and iron things out. They came out and beat Foxcroft, handily in the I don't know what you would call it, the quarterfinal round, semifinal round, where it's a statewide C. That they earned that bye, and you gave them. It reminds me a lot of those old Patriots dynasty teams. They get that bye, and they're so good coming out of that bye. They get a week to coach themselves up. Really do a lot of self-evaluation. Not surprised to see Levitt back in this game in the state championship at all. And they've got some really good players on that team too. That's another one. I mean, Landon Marquis at quarterback, had a really good game. And they can spread the ball around now too. They've just got different weapons all over the field.
Yeah, and I got a sense that they were maybe feeling it in the Herman game, the second half. I was on the sideline, and Hath looks at me, goes, if this works, it's going to be pretty cool. And the next thing I know, Mason Henderson's like jetting into the end zone for a touchdown. I was like, oh, geez, he's calling his shot, where everybody's screwed.
And I think there were people that, I wouldn't say anybody left. Anyone who knows what they're talking about did not leave Levitt for dead when they lost those 2 games. But I think there was some idea that, maybe they've fallen back to the pack a little bit. They won't be, it'll be someone new in the Class C state title game this year. And, Jarod made all the points. The only one I want to add is that, is there anyone better at developing a team in season than Mike Hathaway and his staff? Because they always seem to, no matter what year it is, they might start out a little slow in a year when he doesn't have all the guys coming back, when he's rebuilding. It was supposed to be a building year. Well, he builds really quickly. And then Levitt's back in the state championship again after maybe there was a little bit of doubt in them early in the season, middle of the season. But that's what Levitt does. They get better and better, and they absolutely peak at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, Brody Poland had 2 interceptions for them. They blocked a punt. I mean, They are such effective and efficient managers of their practice time and how they plan and scheme stuff up. They've got a really great staff up there at Levitt. So, Rob and I were talking about it. We do the Portland games, but if there was a year to be in Lewiston, this might be the year. You're gonna get your money's worth between those 2 games in Lewiston for certain.
Yeah, that's my one regret of going to Portland this year is I'm like, boy, I would really like to be at that Greeley Levitt game, because
I think they're both going to be really fun games, and I'm looking forward to keeping one eye on those a little bit while we have the games in Portland we're broadcasting.
But you get to hang out with us on Saturday, so it's not
there's that.
Right.
There's that. And there's food trucks at Fitzy. And I don't think
Yes.
there's going to be food trucks in Lewiston, or I'm not sure. Maybe there will.
The Lewiston Boosters are doing the food there, and I don't know if they still make sambusa in Lewiston at the snack shack, but they once did, and that was worth going to Lewiston in and of itself. I'm not sure what Fitz would be like, but yeah, the food is definitely part of the reason why you like to go to a venue. But this year, you've got two very, very good-looking games in Class C and D taking place at Don Rue Field, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for the guys to call those.
Yeah, so let's move to B. The team I've been trying to see all year because for obvious reasons, but I keep looking at the schedule going, well, that's going to be a blowout. And every week I'm right. Is Coney. Parker Morin is, he's got to be in the Fitzy conversation.
I hope
They're just absolutely obliterating everybody. And you can do the whole, well, the North is not as strong as the South, but they're obliterating people.
Yeah, I don't think it's the North aspect. And, Coach Lippert's all talked about, too, that I asked him about the state championship team and how this team compares. And he said two things that really stood out to me that really, I think, put this team in perspective. One, they're more balanced, he said, than they've ever been. Even the state championship team didn't have the rushing attack this year's Rams have. And, of course, the offense is still pass first. When Coney can throw and has players who are capable, like they have in Parker Morin, and guys who can catch the football, which they have in spades as well. We'll talk about some of them, I'm sure. They're going to pass, but they have a very good rushing attack, especially when it comes to Anderson Noyes. He has been great. And the defense, BL said, more sound than 2013 as well. They don't get intimidated by powerful offenses. They don't get intimidated by some of those marquee players. That's going to bode well for them against Westbrook because Westbrook has both of those things. And then you look at the aspect, too, that he says, this offense has been the highest football IQ of any team I've coached. So that's why Coney is blowing teams out. Those are the reasons why. It's not a weak schedule. It's just that they are really, really good.
And that's also high praise from Coach Lippert, who is one of the smartest football minds in the state. He's one of the only coaches I know that he doesn't wear a headset and he doesn't have a play sheet with him. He just has it here. He's incredibly smart. He sees the game so well. And the balance of this Coney team, right? It's not just one guy or two or three guys that are beating you. We talk about the pass game. They've got 5 receivers that have over 260 yards receiving. They've got 10 different guys, I think, that have scored touchdowns on receiving. But really, it does kind of start with Parker Morin and what he's done this year. 2,500 yards passing, 35 touchdowns to 2 picks. Like, he's efficient with the football.
That turns into a QB rating, but it's up there.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good would be the answer. But also, you want to talk about growth and development. We saw him in his first start 2 years ago, Rob, when we were doing a game there on WHOU, a Coney game, and you could see flashes of it then. I think in the span of the last couple of years, I think in the span of like a couple of games, like he set a touchdown pass record and an interception record. So like he's done a lot of learning and he's done a great job of developing up there. And when you've got a quarterback like that, remember what they did with Ben Lucas back in 2013, and you give BL, you give BL a lot of toys like that to play with and let his offensive mind get super creative. But also the other big thing, and people I've talked to about this Coney team, it's not just their athletes in space, it's their line. Their line is tremendous. Watching them in film, man, do they move well. They just pop off the screen. Very athletic, very physical line. They're crisp in what they do. They provide a lot of good protection, and they create gashes in the run game too. But then on the other side, defensively, they just are suffocating. We were leaving the Portland Thornton game in the regular season. Rob and I were hopped in the car and turned, found a feed of the game. And when the halftime, it was against Freiburg, and the halftime score was like 46-0. Like, you and I both looked at each other and used FCC words that you can't use on the air. It was just, it is a very well-rounded team. That being said, you can say what you want about B North, but they have not played a team like Westbrook. I think Westbrook might be the team that can match up with them the best. And talk about this. The two teams are combined for one state championship game appearance.
Yeah.
That's
wow.
Those are two teams. Westbrook has never been there. And Westbrook kind of, one of the questions that was kind of circulating is how are they going to handle the bright lights of a regional championship game? And sometimes, I did the game with Brandon Terrell, and I made the argument, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes that helps you, just go in and play football. To beat Kennebunk not once but twice in the same year. It's the only time that Kennebunk has lost to a B South opponent since Keith Noel took over as head coach at Kennebunk. To be able to do that is just a tremendous job by him, by Sam Johnson and his staff. Geo Staples is another legitimate quarterback. Watching what he did last Saturday, he did it with his arm, he did it with his feet. I mean, there was one play where he scrambled sideline to sideline, and probably had 8 to 12 seconds in the pocket, and was not pressured, kept his eyes downfield. Very, very impressive. They got Dimitri Lubin at the receiver position as well. They can generate explosives, and we saw that the other night, and you've kind of seen that from this team throughout the season. And they also know how to win and play in close games. Coney, their closest game of the year was a game with Oxford Hills, which was a great game. So, sometimes that close game experience really benefits you, for that Westbrook team. I think this game has the potential to maybe be the highest scoring. If there were such a thing, take the over in this game, I think, if there was one out there. Certainly, I don't know if the model can do over under or not, but I would certainly think that there could be a lot of scoring in this game. Two very high powered offenses, two very good offensive line units. Bonganen playing linebacker as well for Westbrook has also been, I think he was the defensive player. He was runner up to player of the year in the SMAA. To the West kid for Class B SMAA, to the West kid from Kennebunk. So this is going to be a fun game. I'm really looking forward to that one. That's the afternoon game that we have at Fitzy. Again, two really well-coached teams, two high-powered offenses, two defenses that have the ability to get out there and be dominant. I mean, they held Westbrook scoreless for 5.5 quarters this year. That's not an easy thing to do. We took a look at the regular season shutout, and it took better part of a quarter and a half to a quarter. It was late in the second quarter when they scored. But then, within less than 90 seconds and 86 some odd yards, Westbrook marched right back down the field, scored right before halftime. So definitely very similar styles. Should be a lot of fun in that one.
Jarod laid it out really well. Just a couple of players I want to throw out there too. I want to definitely talk about some of the linemen he was mentioning for Coney. Bodie King-Jones and Caden Vayu both, I think, are going to get some consideration for the Gaziano Award. Now, on which side of the ball, I'm not sure. But both those guys, are multi-time all first-team KVAC. I think they've each won it twice, and I could check here. I think one of them may have won it 3 times, but I know they've both been repeaters, this year and last year for sure. So you've got those two guys on the same line who both will get Gaziano consideration. That's impressive in and of itself. You were talking Geo Staples. I want to throw out Cole Tanner as well in the backfield for the Blue Blazes, because I think he's a guy who sometimes gets lost in the shuffle as far as what a talented player he is running the football for Westbrook. And I want to throw out the Westbrook Blue Blazes too. We saw them play Edward Little, and boy, did they have some issues discipline-wise in that game, and really just kind of succeeded in winning the game despite shooting themselves in the foot, blowing off at least 8 of their 10 toes. I think they've really matured over the course of the year, and you saw the game in person. I was, again, watching that. I was watching that one at home on my tablet, and I saw them really look like a different team that's been battle-tested, that's kind of learned how to play within themselves. And I don't think they're going to be handing, Coney free yardage the way they did, early. I think it was week 3 or week 4 that we saw them against Edward Little. They've come a long way. And I left that game at Edward Little thinking overall that, Westbrook's good, but they probably have too many Achilles heels really to get into the big dance. Well, credit Coach Sam Johnson, credit the players of that team, the assistants, the coaching staff. They really kind of got this team disciplined, and here they are, fully deserving be playing for their first gold ball. And, it is the first time. I know when I was going to high school football games back in the 80s, we'd go to Westbrook so we could see the marching band. We certainly didn't think the game was going to be close. We knew they had a great marching band. Well, now it's all about Westbrook football, and they could be taking a gold ball home for the first time ever, and that would be great to see. And if Coney does it for just the second time, it's great to see these programs that have not had success historically over the long haul, although Coney's been good over the last decade or so. Westbrook hasn't, and their ascension has been really fun to watch.
Yeah, I was really impressed with how they did clean up a lot of some of that discipline stuff. Right out of the gate, Kennebunk had 3 penalties in 4 plays, one on the kickoff, one before the ball even got snapped, and another snap infraction 2 plays later. So, they were very disciplined when they had to be. And I like that they never, and credit to Kennebunk because they did not go quietly and they battled, and it was a back and forth game. But, the Westbrook kids never really blanked. They made the plays that they needed to make. One thing that's going to be interesting is this secondary for Coney as well. Very opportunistic. 3 interceptions last week for the Rams. Demons had one. Tenny Tibbetts had another one. Like, they've got guys in the back end. They love their setup in the pass defense, and they turn teams over. They've committed. They've generated 25. They're a plus 22 on the year. They've been able to generate 25 turnovers over the course of the season. They just, they force fumbles. They, 20 interceptions from that defensive unit this year. Yeah. So it's going to be very interesting to see what, that matchup between Staples, who's got a great arm. It's going to be a great quarterback duel, 2 very good, defenses on both sides of the football. This could be in the candidate for one of the games of the week as well.
For sure. Ben Hankey's a ball hawk on defense. And David Fry, too, the senior linebacker, is just a disruptor. He reminds me a lot in some ways of the Shostak boys, who played about a decade ago when they were on the 2013 team, just as far as you can kind of don't run in their direction because you're not going to get very far.
Before we go to A, I just want to point out that if my wife sends me to the store for 5 things, I need a list. So to not have a play sheet and get through an entire football game is insane because I will forget 3 of the things on that list if I don't have it in front of me.
Bia Lipper was my first ever interview as far as football. He was a college football quarterback at Colby, and that Colby Mules team didn't win a ton of games if I recall. But I just remember that conversation I had with BL. I don't know what we talked about. I remember being really impressed just as far as the approach he had, and just this guy's smart. So it doesn't really surprise me that he's able to do that when it comes to managing a game. He doesn't need the sheet. He's got it. He's got every bit he needs right up there.
And he's got a great staff around him too, and so does Coach Johnson. I mean, you don't get to these positions without
except for Kyle Bishop.
Okay, well, Kyle's probably. I don't know what he brings of value to that staff. I'm trying to still figure out what it is of value he brings to our staff at work, but. Well, Kyle's a great guy, and Kyle comes from a football family with pedigree.
Pretty solid player at Waterville High School, and his dad, coached at Lawrence, at Spruce, Livermore, I think is what it was, and now at Knock.
And also, we're totally burying the lead on Westbrook. They started out 0-6 last year.
Yeah,
won their last 2 games. Didn't make the playoffs, but since then, 11 wins in their last 12 games, if my math is right off the top of my head. So. Something clicked down there in Westbrook. So again, going to be really interesting to see who comes out of that in B, and a new champion in B this year. So,
well, at the beginning of the year, I asked, I think it was Andrew Hart, if in the preseason, I was like, is there a Falmouth this year, a team that's going to completely turn around and end up hosting a gold ball at the end of the season? So it might be Westbrook.
Yeah, I think he's the only one who said that. I didn't hear many other people really talking up Westbrook all that much at the beginning of the year. I myself thought the mid-pack. I didn't expect we would be talking about Westbrook in August when we was discussing this. I didn't think Westbrook would be a team we would talk about going on Gold Ball Saturday. A playoff team, sure. But yeah, it's been really impressive and remarkable. And you mentioned that 0-6 start. Westbrook had trouble getting people to play for him for a while, and now I think everyone wants to play for the Blue Blazers. And if they take that gold ball home, then you'll see plenty of numbers growing amongst the young kids in Westbrook, and that's something that might build themselves into a more competitive year in year out powerhouse. But first things first, just taking the gold ball home would be big for them.
All right, so let's move on to A. Now, some people have suggested that the A state championship game was last weekend between Bonnie Eagle and Thornton Academy. So I put it to you both that you're going to probably disagree with that because then no one would watch the game. And what would be the point?
Well, I disagree with it, not just because nobody would watch the game, but I just disagree with it because, I think this is a dangerous Portland team. Yeah, this is a really good Thornton Academy team. But Portland's still the champs, and they've got Cordell Jones.
Yeah,
and he's
tell me it's with Cordell Jones shouldn't show up. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
he had a great second half against Bangor.
Yes, he did, and I think this Portland team has had to deal with a lot of adversity this year. New head coach Nick Cleach, who's doing a fantastic job. They dealt with some adversity and some internal tragedy within the team. With the loss of a parent of a player, a couple of the players who are on the team, who was also a mainstay in their youth football organization. I think when you look back to that regular season matchup with Thornton, to me that really is a one-off. I just think that's such an outlier. Especially given the history between these two teams. It's the third time in a row they've met in the state championship. I think between the two of them, if you go back to 2010, they've combined for 16 state game appearances over the last 14 seasons. So either one of them has been in that position. Obviously, we know that's just Thornton's 7th trip in a row to the state title game. Weird things have happened on state championship Saturdays. I mean, you still have to play the game. And that's, Bonnie Eagle and Thornton is also a Donnybrook every year too. I mean, that's just feels like those teams are always meeting in big moments, and it feels like Portland and Thornton Academy are always meeting in big moments. But I just think, I also you can't be naive enough as a fan of sports in Maine to think that the Portland kids aren't hearing that and that they're not getting motivated this week saying, oh well, here we are again. And I would have that tattooed and plastered over every inch of our Expo locker room wall for them. I mean, they've got, and that Portland team is beat up for a good part of the season too. Yes. They weren't at full strength. So let's not discount that by any stretch of the imagination either for the Bulldogs. I see this as, and they have the opportunity to be the only class in the state, should Portland win this football game, to be the only repeat champion. New champions in all the other classes are guaranteed. We already have new champions in 8-man, large and small, and we're going to have new champions in B, C, and D. We know that. So, they have, there's a lot to play for, obviously. I mean, it goes without saying with the gold ball, but I think this has a lot of, I think there could be some eyebrows raised on Saturday. That being said, this is a very impressive Thornton Academy team too. So, don't want to discount that. But I mean, Cordell Jones is special. He's getting the ball in his hands every single time. But they've got, Martin and McCusick who run the ball exceptionally well. I mean, and they just Charlie Abrams and Thompson starting to, is coming back into the fold for that team too. They're just, they got a lot of different guys who can beat you on that Portland side.
You look at this game, and I don't blame people for, saying that, the state championship game was last week. I understand where that thought comes from. And, you put a couple things together. You got Thornton Academy and Bonnie Eagle, who have just been mainstays as far as state championships are concerned. And you had a running time game between Thornton Academy and Portland last time. We had running time the entire second half. So I get why people are saying it. And don't get me wrong, I do feel that Thornton Academy does have the ability to blow Portland out. It could go that way. I don't necessarily think it will. I think Portland's grown a lot over the last 4 games, especially. They come into this game as underdogs, and I think they know they come into the game as underdogs. I don't think they're going to mind that at all. I think they're that respect angle that Jarod kind of talked about really can add some motivation. They've got some players though. I mean, it's not just Cordell; it's the Alexes in the backfield. McCusick and Martin are great players. You mentioned Charlie Abraham Thompson. Jake Johnson, the senior, is a great target for Cordell Jones to throw at when he wants to throw. And I think that's been the knock on Cordell. Is he a guy who can do it with his arm? He's going to run first. He's just got so much athletic ability that when he gets into the open field, good luck taking him down. An open field solo tackle on Cordell Jones. I mean, if you're able to do that, clip and save the video, you can show that to your grandkids. That's a pretty impressive feat. Now, I don't think Thornton Academy is going to have to do that all that much because they have such speed out there that they'll have plenty of support for anybody who's going to be facing Jones running. But he doesn't have to make the long throw downfield. If they can just get some bunch plays and really just kind of keep the football. I think that's the big thing. If they can keep the football, keep that Thornton Academy offense off the field, they got a puncher's chance in this game. I mean, and then they can throw quite a punch. I don't count Portland out in this contest at all. Yeah, I'd say they're underdogs, but don't think this game, to me, going into it, is a foregone conclusion.
And I think the other thing, too, when you look at that regular season game, is they gave a lot of short fields to Thornton Academy. Thornton Academy,
you're all about. You're right. Yeah,
you give, you can't give those short fields to teams normally, but you really can't give it to good teams, especially like Thornton Academy. So Thornton Academy really didn't, and really it was all done in that first half. I know it was running time in the second half, but
it was the first quarter.
It was the first quarter. Outside of that,
we were amazed how quickly that game was over with. Hey, you make a defensive takeaway, a special team score, something like that for Portland. Get something that maybe you don't expect, and that can change the entire dynamic of the game. So, they have the capability of doing it. If I was going to, I think most people are putting the weight in the odds on Thornton Academy's side. I'm sure your model will as well, but I will not count out Portland.
Yeah. I mean, that game I was in Wiscasset traffic longer than that game was competitive that day. Like that was over in 5 minutes. Reds was open. Yeah. So there's that.
But I think some things that you got to also look at too, and we'll dive into Thornton a little bit more here is, ever since that kind of 2-game bump in the middle of the season, just with everything going on there, they've had some impressive wins, especially against Exeter, who's the number 3 team in the New Hampshire Division I East League right now. Only 3 losses, and one of those came from Portland. That Exeter, the Blue Hawks, I believe they are.
Yes.
See, look, I'm spent enough time at Dartmouth that I'm starting to learn things like.
And we saw him last year. Don't forget that. We saw him in Fitzy.
We did see him at Fitzy a couple of years. That's a very impressive football team.
Yes.
That we saw that got a win against Portland at Fitzy a couple of years ago, if I remember correctly. I think they did. It was a close game.
Yeah, they won. Exeter won that game. I think it was last year, in fact, when
they
Portland won
that
the state
series.
Yeah.
But they are winning football games. They've put together a really good formula. I just think that they're going to have some stuff that they sit on the back pocket that are schemed up. They've done some Wildcat stuff we saw earlier in the year. But again, I think the key for them is keep the offense on the field and grind out some long drives, because on the other side, you got Connor Ayub, who is, you talk about Fitzy guys. He's definitely going to be in that conversation. I mean, he is just a touchdown machine, a yardage machine. And just, it's a very, very impressive Thornton Academy team this year too.
I feel great for Ayub too, because, he had to take kind of the blocking role and kind of a second man role with Mauricio Sunderland last year for Thornton Academy. And Ayub's been given the chance, been given the ball, and he has just done everything that they've needed him to do in the backfield. Yeah, certainly a guy who's going to get a lot of Fitzy consideration, could win the whole darn thing. I think he's got a lot of very worthy people we can talk about at a later date for that. But it's been great to see him just kind of literally take the ball and run with it. And he has had an outstanding season. And when you kind of put a guy like that in the backfield, like they had with Sunderland as well, it just opens up the passing game. And you've got 2 guys who can play quarterback in Fullerton and Rondo. And you can use them both, who can throw the football. So, defensively, yeah, you got to make sure that offense does not get too many opportunities to strike, because the weapons are there. And we haven't even talked about guys like, Steve-O Jones and special teams, what he can do with a run back on kickoff returns and punt returns. So the line is outstanding, whether it's, starting the left tackle with Quinn Purvis. He's a guy who's going to get potentially some Gaziano love as well. I mean, it's really just a team where you look and see, where are the weaknesses? Blaine Sickard out there, 225. I mean, Colin Thompson, another guy, I think he plays the right guard position. Just so much talent. So, yeah, keep him off the field, Portland's going to have to, and again, they can't make mistakes. You can't give the short field. You can't give gifts to Thornton Academy, or it's going to be a long afternoon or a long evening for them. Afternoon is an 11 o'clock game. This team has in Thornton Academy so many weapons to look at that you just kind of look at the cornucopia of the arsenal of talent that Coach Kiesel has down there in Saco Dayton.
Oh, Dominic Hussey as well. I mean, he recovered that onside kick last week as well. I want to mention another defensive player for Portland, Colin Haig, is another stud that's on that side of the football. And Thornton Academy did give up some touchdown runs, last week to quarterbacks especially. So again, when you got a running quarterback that you might be able, Colin Moran ran for 3 touchdowns last week and got them to within 5 points late. They just couldn't bring in that onside kick. So, a similar shotgun style offense, so I'm certain that that's a film that Portland's going to watch with great interest and has been watching with great interest to see how they were able to get, Moran to be able to get into space and run the football effectively like that from the quarterback position and how you can do that to Jones. Because once he gets in the middle field, he's, in open field, he's extremely tough. But, like you said, Rob, this Thornton team is very balanced. And the other thing that they're able to do is they're able to run a lot of one-way guys, just with the amount of depth that they have. And that helps to win out over time. And I know one of the things that they've really focused on from last year, it was an Achilles heel for that Thornton Academy team, was they gave up chunk plays. And that's something they've really worked on cutting down. I know that in that state game, that hurt them. So you look at if you're looking for some juice in this game, you've got a motivated Portland team that's like, hey guys, we're still the champs until we're not the champs. Don't throw any dirt on us. And then you got a Thornton Academy team that's also statistically on an on and off cycle. Every other year they win. Every other year, for the last, this will be 7 in a row. So they obviously would like to see that trend continue where they win an odd number of years. So this one, I think there's a lot more to this game than people might give it a glance on the surface. You can make the argument that maybe that was the state championship game and last week between Bonnie Eagle and Thornton Academy, but I can think of a bunch of people that are going to be wearing blue and white on Saturday that would like to instill the strenuously object to come back to the from the beginning of the show. So,
well, if we could do anything on this show to help put bulletin board material together for teams, I'm always glad to do it because. Yeah, no.
Your spreadsheet hates teams. I mean, you're probably the single largest generator of bulletin board material in the state. That's more than like quotes in the Press Herald, the Sun Journal, the Bangor Daily News, and the Kennebec Journal combined.
I did see a story once where it led with they said Maine basketball rankings said we had like the 4th worst scoring defense in the state or in the class or whatever it was. So we figured we needed to show that we could play defense. And I was like, yes.
I remember when I coached basketball, I used to like look at the ranking like, oh, that is come on. I don't like how accurate it is. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, I also think that it's all about pushing the right buttons this week for coaches in all 4 games for all 8 teams. How you push those buttons and yeah, I don't think that you're playing for a gold ball. I know that you kind of look for those extra little pieces, those extra little nuggets in the paper, but I don't feel like, at this point, you know what you are as a team, you know what your goal is, you know what your mission is. I don't necessarily think there's going to be a lot of going out and fishing for anything you can throw up on bulletin boards. And if you find some and that helps add extra fuel to the fire, perfect. But if you need that to get kick-started, then there might be a problem anyway in the first place. But I think, all 8 of these coaches, all 8 of these teams, it's always fun to be practicing the week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So as the goal, Jimmy Elwood said, we want to play until they make us stop. And that's what these teams get to do. So check that box, mission accomplished there. You get to play on the last countable game, last countable day of Maine high school football. That's always the goal.
Exactly. So people can watch these games on WHOU. If they haven't already subscribed to WHOU, I don't know how they got this far into this podcast, honestly. But you should definitely be subscribed, and you're going to need it for basketball season anyway. So
that's it too. That's the basketball season, the regular season, the tournament. HOU covers a lot of games, and the people sometimes think, well, it's just county teams. That's where it started. And they just kind of made such great inroads up there that Fred Grant, now Ben Grant, we can take this statewide. That's kind of how come we're involved with WHOU. If they hadn't decided to take this statewide, then we wouldn't be involved with this great organization. So, it's a lot of schools in the SMAA. I know Ethan Snow last year was all over the place down in Southern Maine. Jarod and I, Brendan Terrell, will be hanging around some of the high schools in Central Maine when it comes to basketball season, the regular season. And of course, you got the Bangor area with Dale Duff and some of his crew in that region. And you've got the outstanding work that Steve Carmichael and the rest of the gang does up north in Presque Isle and in the county. So, you want someone covering anybody statewide. HOU is doing that, and it's really kind of cool to see how they've built that, step by step, piece by piece, just kind of encroaching further south. But we always felt too, and we talked about this year, Jarod and I, that for football, the SMA was just really underserved when it came to live broadcast. That very rarely do you have anything besides like a Huddle Cam, or you have a couple places do it. Thornton Academy does a great job, and I listen to Abe Huff broadcast, and he's filling in the big shoes that guys like Cole Purvis left and Zach Tarenko. So you have that, but outside of Thornton Academy, you don't really see, in Portland now too, of course, you don't really see a lot of live broadcasts now down here. So we're glad to be down here, and HOU has really done a great job now, really focusing on the entire state.
Yeah, and I don't know that people realize how rare something like WHOU is at the high school level. Like, I don't know how many states have something like that in their state.
No, not often. I know Alaska has something similar. I think it's got to be states that put really a giant emphasis on community, especially in the rural parts of the state, and where you don't have a lot of professional or upper level like Division 1A sports teams. The University of Maine is very highly regarded and followed, but it's not Alabama. So we really, and Maine really loves its communities. So I think that's a situation where when you have that, something like WHOU to kind of highlight the accomplishments of students, that's a really great thing. And it's not something you have many places elsewhere. A little bit Vermont, NSN does it there, but you just don't see it all that much.
And it's not just athletics. WHOU covers a bunch of other things. They've done state jazz competitions. I kind of drawn Rob out when he does the read about everything that WHOU does, because it's just so much to compile, but thousands of broadcasts and events, live events. I know that they do work now. They've done a lot of work with Thomas, UMA now. They hit all the boxes. And it's not just athletics. I think, I know there was jazz competitions and some other stuff that they had covered too. So swimming, they hit some of the state swim meets as well. So they hit it top to bottom. Are you smiling at Facebook again, Rob?
Yes. Where was the swim coverage when I was swimming? That's what I want to know. Oh yeah, that's right. It was 1989. There wasn't in the internet.
Yeah.
We only had video cassettes.
Grainy footage.
Grainy footage, and the cameras couldn't handle the moisture from the pools, probably.
That must be it.
Chlorine.
All right. So, I think that'll probably do it. So people should definitely watch the games. You guys want to I know, Jarod, you didn't want to pick games, but which game do you think will be the best game?
Oof.
The closest game, the one that we'll be talking about Monday.
I'm glad you asked him first.
Oh, wow. The game we're going to be talking about on Monday. Man, I think people, let me give you something people can talk about from every game. Okay. I think we'll start with Class D. I think that's going to be one that people are like, that is one of the more physical football games I've seen in a long time. I think those are two teams that can smack. I think that the talk of that is going to just be how physical that Class D game is. I think when you look at the Class C game, I think that you're going to see, I think the C and the B games are going to be similar in that, wow, there were a lot of fireworks in those games, a lot of big plays, a lot of exciting plays. I think that's going to be the storyline out of both of those games. In C, Greeley's explosive offense and Levitt's ability to create explosive plays. I think you're going to see the most explosive plays between those two games. And I think you could probably have, coming out of that Class A game, people are going to say, wow, we undervalued Portland, and they they made this a very entertaining and exciting game, no matter the outcome. I think that's going to be, those are your storylines, I think, is, people probably undervaluing Portland a little bit against a very good TA team. I think it's going to be the fireworks and explosiveness. I think you're going to have the highest scoring game in B. You're going to have some really exciting, explosive plays in C, and you're going to have just old school rock fight football in D. I think those are the four things people will be talking about on Sunday and Monday.
I'm not going to evade the question like Jarod did because he didn't want to go out on a limb. So I'm going to go with Class C. I think the Class C game is the one that I think Greeley Levitt could really be a classic. So I'm going to go with that one. And I would agree with everything that Jarod said as far as setting up the games, though, as well. I think that was very, very well put. But as far as the actual question, you want to have a stance? I mean, you asked me a couple of years back. Last year's like, give me someone no one's talking about. I said the Herman Hawks. They ended up getting pretty close to victory. Yep. So I'm taking a stand here. Class C. That's going to be the game. I think people are talking about. I think Greeley and Levitt really sets up that it could be a classic.
Okay. Twist my arm. I'm gonna agree. I think we talked about it when I was. Well, no, I was just sitting here thinking, like, you know what? I'm not going to take the rail splitter way out. I'm gonna jump on it. You would appreciate that as a history teacher, Rob.
Yeah, I like the Lincoln reference.
You like that? So I'll be honest. I'll be honest with this. I think we talked about it earlier in the year, and I think people have talked about it all year, that Class C was the most dynamic and parity-filled league. It only makes sense that might be the best game of the weekend. They played to a 2-point game in the regular season. I don't see it being anything different the second time around. Two good coaches who know how to scheme up. I think that has the potential to be the game of the weekend.
Yeah, a very close game the first time around, and both teams are playing better as the year's gone by. So, I mean, it's just a question of which one improved more, I guess.
That's what we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. All right, guys, this is great. I knew I could just wind you up and just let you guys talk back and forth, and it would be great. Award-winning. I don't think we mentioned what award you guys won, because it wasn't some like rinky-dink little award.
It was, and we want to make it clear too, this was for the entire aspect of the broadcast. It was the Caribou York boys basketball game. And Nick Godfrey did the production on that. And Nick is an absolute genius when it comes to sports production. He's so easy to work for. The instructions that he gives as far as driving a broadcast are outstanding. The camera crew on that, the sound, everything on that was great. And I said to Nick too that, when you talk about that award, I think that all Jarod and I have to do is show up and be somewhat competent, because the production work will speak for itself. And it really is a full team effort. And I think both of us will just say that we're just thrilled to be able to work for, we talked a lot about HOU, MPBN as well, just to work for an organization that, we both grew up watching those games. And I think from as early on as we felt that we wanted to be broadcasters, and I think I'll speak for Jarod here too, we wanted to be calling those games, because as Mainers, that's kind of the pinnacle of sports broadcasting here as far as live sports broadcasts. It really matters. There's not much I'll skip a Dartmouth game for, but I will absolutely come back and call a basketball game in Portland for the state championship again this year. And it's Dartmouth-Princeton hockey. It's like the biggest game we have all year. I'm still coming back to Maine, and they understand that. It's like, I'm a Mainer. This is my roots, and I'm not going to pass this up. This is an opportunity I've wanted forever. And how Jarod was the same way.
Yeah, I mean, you get to see us and you get to hear us. Like, we're the most. I know it kind of is like that cliche that broadcasters will say, we're just the most visible part of a larger team, and it takes everybody's stats on my left, production assistant on Rob's right, helping keep us going. Nick does a great job, but the number, a half dozen people in the truck and camera people. It was top to bottom, just tremendous production. And and they Maine BBN jumped into field hockey state finals this year as well. So, continuing to work on expanding what they're doing. I know that they recently just got a new production truck as well, which is exciting, and they want to continue to do some more live events. But it's you grow up if you can't be there. I remember watching games from the old Bangor Auditorium. I remember lots of classic names that have been on MPBN forever. And to be now part of that group, to be part of that team, was extremely exciting. It was a goal. Like we talked about when I was on the show back earlier in the season. Like, I went to college to be a sports journalist and do sports broadcasting, and do that without thinking about those weekends in February when you see Maine Public on the air, and that's a goal, and to be able to accomplish that goal was a lot of fun. But also having that appreciation for the people behind the scenes, because without those people, we don't get on the air. I mean, Rob and I work with a tremendous producer during football season, and Ben Grant. Ben Grant does a great job.
Multitasking Ben.
Multitasking Ben, camera, replay, all of that at the same time. Ethan Snow last week, same. I mean, there's a lot of, I think, a great place to end it too is you look at the support staff, the people that, and Mike Vrabel highlighted the support staff for the Patriots too. Like, you get to see, or hear. Thankfully, you don't have to see a lot of Rob and I on the camera other than here. But
hey, speak for yourself.
Okay, well, I'm trying to not, gain a vanity complex here after the last couple of weeks. But
I just want to say I learned Maine geography from MPBN's basketball coverage.
Yes.
I didn't know what DRL Stonington was.
Sure, yeah.
But I watched them beat somebody badly in Class D basketball when I was in high school. I'm like, so I learned a lot of places that, as a kid in Cumberland County, anything north of Brunswick might as well be Mars, it seems like sometimes. And, I learned a lot about, different schools. Little did I know that I'd be covering some of them later on and having so much fun with all that, Maine sports broadcasting is brought to me over the course of the years. It's a blast.
Yeah, and you tape the games. Like if you were there, you would tape the games. You come home and you see your hometown on that screen and everything. It just, it's huge. But I think also, we get to come on here and talk about sports, but it's the people behind the scenes that make it possible for us to be able to talk about sports and cover sports too. So I know as we start to transition from one season to another, a lot of people behind the scenes to make things happen. And, we're very lucky to work with a great crew at MBBN and at WHRU.
I've seen the last couple of years firsthand the job that Nick and that whole crew has done, and it's every year I'm like, geez, this is really a production. Like this is pretty seamless, and there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah,
and he's always looking for new ways to expand it, make it better, and grow on it. He's a brilliant mind, and they've got a great one there. And just like Rob said, lucky to be part of the team.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's end it there. This has been great. I will see you guys on Saturday, and hopefully we get two really good football games. And if we don't get two really good football games, hopefully the food trucks have good stuff.
Always
they will. They always do.
All right. Thanks a bunch, guys.
Hey, thanks.
Okay, that's the show. Thanks again to Rob and Jarod. They do fantastic work as always. And yes, shout out to Nick and all the people at Maine Public. It's really impressive what they do. That's going to do it for the show. This has been a production of MaineBasketballRankings.com, your source for the most comprehensive coverage of Maine high school basketball from Ashland to York and everywhere in between. This podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts and a bunch of places you don't. If you enjoy it, please leave a review because it really does help out with algorithms. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Thanks for listening.